Welcome back, Deep Divers. You know the drill. We take fascinating source material and we really just dive in so you can walk away feeling like you've actually learned something without slogging through a ton of stuff you don't need.
Right. Today's deep dive is, we're going into the book of Numbers.
Ooh, the Book of Numbers.
Chapter 13 specifically, in the King James Bible. You know, it's one of those stories, it's about exploration, it's about discovery, and it's a major turning point, and there's a lot of really contrasting points of view in this story. It's fascinating.
I love that. And just to set the scene, I mean, we've got Moses. He's following, God's instructions. He's about to lead the children of Israel into the promised land, Canaan. But before they just go marching in, he sends out 12 leaders,
Mm-hmm.
one from each of the ancestral tribes.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't just random dudes, you know what I mean? They're like the respected figures in their communities.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what we really want to unpack today is like, what did that initial assessment of Canaan actually look like? Like, what did they find? What kind of report did they actually bring back?
Yeah.
And I think most importantly, like, what were those seeds of doubt that kind of took root based on what they saw and what they said? Because this is a story that has way more to it than just like, oh, here's a scouting mission.
Right.
Like, the Promised Land wasn't just any random piece of property. This was about the fulfillment of God's covenant with Abraham.
Yeah.
It was a land that represented abundance and blessing for these people. So, like, their mission carried a lot of weight.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. Like the first big thing is obviously sending these spies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So starting in verse 2, God actually tells Moses, "Send thou men that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall ye send a man, every one a ruler among them." And that last part I think is really, really important. Like every one a ruler among them. So these were influential guys whose opinions would have mattered to people.
Right. And I think what's so cool about that is like how deliberate it was. I mean, one leader from each of the 12 tribes, it really shows you like how important this was going to be for everybody. Like what they were going to bring back was going to impact everybody. This was not like a casual, let's just go check it out kind of thing.
Totally, totally. And I think what's fun, too, is we actually get, like, a list of all these guys. Starting in verse 4, you've got, like, for Reuben, it was Shemua. For Simeon, it was Shaphat. For Judah, well, we all know Caleb. Issachar had Igal. Ephraim sent Hoshea, who was later renamed by Moses to Jehoshua, which is, our Joshua. Then you got Benjamin sent Palti, Zebulun, Gadi, Manasseh, Gadi, Dan, Alniel, Asher, Sethur, Naphtali, Nabi, and last but not least, Gad sends Gul. It's like a who's who at this like really critical moment.
Yeah, it is. And that renaming, by the way, of Hoshea to Jehoshua, that is a really interesting detail. You know, names back then, they had a lot of weight to them, a lot of meaning. And this change basically meant God is salvation or God helps, right? Which is like really fitting when you think about what they're about to go do, like claim this promised land. It might seem small, but I think it really hints at how important this whole thing was.
I love those little details, those little things that just make you think. Okay, so we've got our carefully selected group, leaders in their own right, tasked with this big, big mission. So what happens next? Well, Moses lays out their marching orders, what they're supposed to be looking for, looking at. That's in verses 17 through 20. It wasn't just go take a look around, guys.
No, not at all.
He had very specific things he wanted answers to.
Yes, he did. He's telling them, head to the Negev, that's the southern region, right? And then go up into the hill country. And he's got this whole list of stuff, right? Like, check out the land.
Mm-hmm.
Is it good for growing stuff? Is it fertile or barren? What about the people living there? Are there a lot of them? Are they strong? Are they weak? What kind of places do they live in? Do they have like open camps, or are they in these big walled cities? And really importantly, is there timber? Like, can we actually use the resources there?
Practical stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's this line, it's so vivid. It's like, be ye of good courage and bring of the fruit of the land. Now, the time was the time of the first striped grapes.
Yeah.
I mean, that little detail about the grapes just tells you, like, what time of year it was, right?
Right.
And that there's all this abundance. Like, can you imagine tasting those first, like, sweet grapes of the promised land?
It's amazing imagery. And what I think is really interesting there is, like, Moses wants proof. He's not just saying, go tell me what you saw. He's like, bring me back something. Show me what you found.
Yeah.
And those grapes, they're more than just grapes, right? They're like this visible confirmation of God's promise, a little sample of what's waiting for them.
Like a little snack.
Yeah, exactly. And that be ye of good courage. I kind of feel like maybe Moses knew this wasn't going to be all sunshine and roses.
Ooh, foreshadowing.
Maybe, maybe he was expecting some tough stuff, some challenges, or even some not so great reports back.
Speaking of challenges, their journey. I mean, these guys really get around. That's all described in verses 21 to 25. They scout from the wilderness of Zin all the way up north to Rehob, which is near the entrance of Hamath. Then they explore the southern parts, and they go up to Hebron.
And that mention of Hebron, I think, is really important because, the text actually mentions Ahiman, Shashai, and Talmai, and it says they're descendants of Anak. So this is where we get our first hint that maybe, just maybe, there are some seriously strong people living in this land.
Uh-oh.
And then there's this little tidbit in there, just a little historical side note. Now, Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. It's like they're reminding us this is an old place. It's got history. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like this isn't some new upstart.
Exactly.
Exactly. But the real kicker, the thing that makes you go, whoa, is what they found at the Valley of Eshcol. A single cluster of grapes so big that it took 2 dudes to carry it on a pole between them.
Can you imagine?
That's nuts. It just shows you how fertile this land is. And they also brought back pomegranates and figs. I mean, what were they feeding those things?
I know. Just imagine the size of those grapes. Okay. But I think it's such a powerful image, right? It's like this concrete, undeniable proof that the land is flowing with milk and honey, just like God said. You even named the place the Valley of Eshcol after those huge grapes. It's like, yeah, this place is awesome.
That's a good marketing campaign right there.
Right.
So all this exploring, it wasn't just a quick trip. It took them 40 days. That's a thorough investigation.
40 days is a long time. Like, they really took their time to, see what was what and to collect all those samples. Yeah, absolutely. So then they head back. That's in verses 26 and 27. They go back to Moses and Aaron, and the whole community is gathered at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They give their report, you show off their haul, and they start with, a pretty positive vibe. They're like, we went to the land and it's totally amazing, just like you said, flowing with milk and honey, and here's the proof. Everything seems to be going according to plan, right?
It does. The land is everything they'd hoped for. The proof is right there in those giant fruits. You'd think everyone would be super stoked and ready to go.
Right. But then comes verse 28, and that one little word, nevertheless. And that's where things take a turn. That's where we see these different points of view start to really come out.
This is it. This is the turning point of the whole story. So they're acknowledging that, the land is great, but then they start focusing on all the hard parts. They say, but the people who live there, they're really strong. And those cities, they've got walls and they're huge. And on top of that, we even saw the descendants of Anak there. And remember, Anak? Those are the giants. So immediately they're introducing this element of fear, the land is nice, but are we really going to be able to take it?
I mean, who wants to fight a giant?
Right. Nobody wants to fight a giant.
And then they go into detail about all these groups and where they are. They talk about the Amalekites in the south, the Hittites and Jebusites and Amorites up in the hills, and the Canaanites by the sea and along the Jordan River. It's like they're mapping out all the enemies they're going to face.
It's like they're totally overwhelmed by all these different groups, all these people who are already there, all settled in. It would be scary. How are we ever going to beat all these guys?
It's intimidating. But then, verse 30, Caleb speaks up. He's like, whoa, hold on a second. Let's just go for it. We can totally take this land. We're strong enough. I mean, what a different attitude.
Right. I know. Same land, 2 completely different reactions. And I think Caleb's response is such a powerful example of faith. It's like everyone else is looking at all the obstacles, but Caleb's looking at God's promise. He's like, God said we could do this, so we can do this.
But the majority, they just weren't on board. And in verses 31 through 33, their report gets even more negative. It's like a full-on fear fest.
Yeah.
They flat out say, we can't do it. Those people are too strong. And it just keeps getting more dramatic from there.
Oh, it gets pretty intense. They go on to say, the land we explored, it's a land that devours its own people. And everyone we saw, huge, giants.
Don't even bother. It's a death trap.
Right. But what's interesting to me is that it feels like they're exaggerating. Maybe the land wasn't actually killing everybody. Maybe those people weren't all giants. But their fear is making everything seem way worse than it is.
Right. And then, verse 33, this is the line everyone remembers. There we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. I mean, that is just such a powerful image.
Really.
Feeling so small and helpless compared to these, massive enemies. But I think the key takeaway here is not just that they saw big people, but that their own fear made them feel tiny and powerless, like they hadn't even fought anyone yet.
That grasshopper comparison is so important. It's not just about physical size, it's about their whole mindset. Like, they already feel defeated before they even start. They're putting all their fear and self-doubt onto these other people, and that's what's making them feel like grasshoppers. It's a failure of perspective. They're so focused on what they think they can't do that they're forgetting about God and what he can do.
And that leads into some really interesting commentary on this whole passage. It really points out how the people chose to rely on their own limited understanding, like what they could see with their own eyes, what they could figure out with their own brains, instead of trusting God's word, his promises. It's like they'd already seen so much evidence of God's power, but in this moment, they just kind of forget all about it. It's like, what happened to your faith, guys?
Right. It's classic, like walking by sight, not by faith. And the commentary also talks about how that fruit, those amazing grapes and everything, they weren't just like a sample of the land's bounty. They were like a taste of the spiritual blessings God had in store for them.
Right.
But they couldn't see past their fear. All those amazing things God had promised, they were missing out on it because they were too focused on the scary stuff.
It's so easy to get caught up in the scary stuff.
Right. And the commentary also talks about how their lack of faith became this like huge roadblock. They had God on their side. He'd already done so much for them, but because they didn't believe, they couldn't move forward. It's like they were holding themselves back.
That's shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly. And the contrast between those evil spies and Caleb is so striking. The commentary mentions how when you approach things with faith, difficulties seem smaller. It's all about your perspective.
It's like when you're afraid of something, it seems so much bigger than it actually is.
Right. But when you have faith, you're like, okay, I can handle this. God's got my back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Caleb, he had that faith. He saw the same giants and walls, but he saw them through a different lens. He saw opportunity. He saw God's power at work. It's amazing how faith can change your whole view of things.
Absolutely. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses and seeing the world in a whole new way.
I love that. So just to bring it all home, we've got this land. It's brimming with potential, overflowing with goodness. We've got physical proof, those crazy big grapes, pomegranates, figs. But the majority of these leaders, they get hung up on the size of the people living there, those walled cities, the giants.
And it's that clash, right, between what's actually there, this amazing land, and how they're interpreting it, which is all filtered through fear and doubt. The fruit, which should have been like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
It becomes almost irrelevant because they're so focused on all the scary stuff.
Yeah. And what blows my mind is that the same evidence, the same stuff they brought back led to such different reactions, like all because of their own perspective, their own belief system.
It makes you think about our own lives, right? Like, how often do we look at the same facts as someone else but come to completely different conclusions? It's all about what we bring to the table, our fears, our assumptions.
And how often do we let our own fears create giants in our lives? Like those things that seem impossible to overcome. Maybe they're not as big and scary as we think. Maybe it's our own grasshopper mentality that's making them seem that way. And what amazing fruit are we missing out on because we're too scared to reach for it?
That's such a great question. It's like, are we letting our fear hold us back from experiencing all the good stuff God has for us?
What do you think might have happened if those spies had all had Caleb's outlook? What if they all been like, we can do this?
Who knows for sure, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's safe to say things would have been different. Maybe they would have entered the promised land a lot sooner. Maybe they wouldn't have wandered in the wilderness for so long. It's a reminder that faith can change everything, but doubt can really hold us back. And that's something worth thinking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So deep divers, as you go about your week, keep your eyes on the fruit and remember, don't let the giants hold you back.
That's great advice. Until next time.
See ya.